This is my full advanced guide for Mekanism. We are today going to be talking around factories, robots and digital miners, how to refine obsidian, thermal evaporation towers, portals, charge pads, jetpacks, atomic disassemblers, quantum entangloporters, and pressurized reaction chambers, along with doubling, tripling, and quadrupling our ores. If you are new to Mekanism, I would recommend watching my beginner guide. I'll link that in the description for you. And this does technically follow on from that. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is factories. In my beginner guide, we spoke about all of the basic machines, but did you know you can actually upgrade these into factories? We have a basic smelting factory, an advanced, an elite, and an ultimate. And the same goes for every other machine pretty much that you see here. The ones you can upgrade are the enrichment chamber, the crusher, the osmium compressor, the combiner, the purification chamber, the chemical injection chamber, the metallurgic infuser, and the precision sawmill. What we can then do here is, you may already know that we can put in some ore into an energized smelter and it will smelt it. In the basic smelting factory, we can actually put in, and with the auto sort on and off, it will actually split them out into 3 slots, meaning we're getting triple the output. And we can still put in energy and speed upgrades. The elite is then 5 slots. Sorry, the advanced is 5 slots. The elite is 7, and ultimate is a whopping great big 9 slots. So how do we upgrade these machines? Well, there's 2 ways we can do it. We can actually upgrade the machine itself, or we can use these installers. Let's have a look at these first. So we have the basic, the advanced, the elite, and the ultimate installer. The basic tier installer simply uses basic control circuits by infusing redstone and osmium in a metallurgic infuser. The advanced then uses advanced versions, which is infused alloy with basic control circuits. The elite then use reinforced versions, which is used by adding diamond into your infused alloys. And the ultimate, which is where it gets a tiny bit more complex, will need refined obsidian. Using refined obsidian into your reinforced alloys to make atomic alloys, and the same for the ultimate control circuit. And that is how you make the 4 installers. Another way you can do it is by just upgrading the machine. So using an energized smelter in the middle, we can then just use basic control circuits. With the basic, we can then turn it into an advanced using the same resources. Same with the elite and same with the ultimate. But again, it poses the question, how do we get refined obsidian to actually infuse our atomic alloys? Well, way over here, you can see we have this very simple setup. To make the refined obsidian, we're simply going to get an enrichment chamber and put in obsidian. And it's actually going to technically crush it into obsidian dust in the enrichment chamber. I'm pulling it out using a logistical transporter into a metallurgic infuser, where we're going to infuse it with diamond. If you try putting in diamonds here and it doesn't work, that is because you need to use diamond dust. That will, using the diamond and your obsidian dust, turn it into refined obsidian dust. And if you would like, you can then use an osmium compressor to compress that into refined obsidian ingots. What we can do here in the osmium compressor is simply put in osmium ingots, which will put the osmium in here, and we can make our refined obsidian dust into ingots. So they can't just be smelted from dust, they do need osmium going in. And that is how we make the resources needed to actually make our ultimate versions, and that goes for the same, whether it's pipes, cables, etc., etc. So now that we've actually made refined obsidian and looked at the factories, what else can we do with this new ingot? Well, it actually has some really, really useful use cases. One of them is Robit. Another is refined obsidian chestplate, which is actually quite good armor for mid-game. We can use teleporters, obsidian tools, things like the chemical crystallizer, which there's a few machines like that we're going to be talking through at some point in this video. Atomic disassemblers, quantum entangloporters, and again, other machines like chemical washers. I first want to talk through the Chargepad and then Robit. To make the charge pad, it's really quite simple. You see some steel, some pressure plates, and an energy tablet. And this is going to need to be powered from the bottom here. So this is where you put your power in. And what you can do is place anything on here that needs charging, like weapons, armor, etc., etc. One really useful thing you can do, though, is Robit. Robit, again, just needs some basic resources, including refined obsidian, of course. And he's a really, really cute companion. So what can he actually do for us? Well, he can act as a crafting grid, a furnace, an anvil, a chest, or just simply a best friend. And he is immune to fire, including the flamethrower. Once you've crafted him and he's on your inventory, you're just going to right-click him on a charge pad, and that is basically his base of operations. And you do obviously want to make sure that the charge pad has power so that Robit can actually, be charged up. Now, when you look at him as I'm hovering over it, top left of the video, you can see he's only got half a heart of health. When he's charging up like this, he doesn't have health per se, but he has more so actual energy. And he is actually going to follow you around. So if I'm walking around my base doing bits and bobs, I can say, oh, there's Robit. So basically, you've always got like a crafting grid wherever you are. You can go back to the Robit homepage. We're looking at these options on the right, where you can say, do you want him to follow you or not? Do you want him to drop and pick things up or not? Because he does have an inventory. Crafting grid, of course. Robit smelting and Robit repair. So he does work as an anvil. You can also say to him to teleport back home, which will take him back to the charge pad. You can rename him or even change his appearance out of all of these choices. If I ask him to teleport back home, you can see he instantly teleports back. Now, if he does get stuck and lost in the wild, he will automatically teleport back to his charge pad. However, if the charge pad is broken, then he will be dropped on the ground and you will need to make sure you pick him up, or he could despawn. But again, if he actually gets lost out here, he will teleport back as long as the charge pad is available. This machine in front of us is the digital miner. This is a fantastic piece of equipment from, of course, Mekanism that we can use to mine up things from the earth without really having to go down and get it ourselves. Now, it's made using Robit here and a few other materials. If we look at the digital miner, you can see here it needs some logistical sorters, which is some iron ingots, a basic control circuit and a piston. Robit, which needs some refined obsidian. Teleportation cores needing atomic alloys. It's not really that complex if you're already at this sort of level in Mekanism. So what does it actually do? Well, when I right click on it, you can see that there's quite a lot going on here. So let's take it step by step. First, we need to give it power. And there is this part here where it's green, and that is where you're going to give it power. So I'm using a creative energy cell. And you can also give it power on this side as well. Let's then turn it on. So here it is. We can see that it is actually working. Now, I'm just going to stop this and press reset. So we've got some options here to start with. It's idle. It's not ready to mine. Do we want to auto eject the items that we're mining? Yes or no? Do we want to auto pull? Yes or no? Now, what this actually means, I'm going to explain this in a minute in more detail, is do we want to pull from this chest above? There is an option within the digital miner to replace the blocks that we're mining. So do we want to leave holes everywhere, or would we like to replace them, for instance, with cobblestone? And it's saying, should I automatically pull those replacement blocks from the container? And there's an orange hole in the middle under this chest, and this is where it's going to pull blocks from. So yes or no. And do we want to use Silk Touch? Yes or no. There's also upgrades. We can use a stone generator upgrade where it generates stone or cobble as needed. We can also use an anchor upgrade to keep the machine's chunk loaded because we could be mining, who knows where. And then there's a speed and energy upgrade as you get in a lot of other machines. There is also a security, so you can say, is it trusted, public or private? And there's a visuals on and off. This will basically show you beneath the ground like a blue kind of like glass where it's going to mine. I leave these off generally. So then how are we going to actually tell it what to mine? Well, we're going to go into the config here, and you can see it basically works on filters, and these are pretty intuitive. What I can do is say new filter. I can say a mod ID, so I can say Mekanism and save, and the mod ID is going to mine anything from Mekanism. You can see it's cycling through all the different items from Mekanism that it can mine. Or we can add an item stack. Let's say I only want to mine osmium. I can say, okay, please mine for me osmium ore and save that filter. And it does also have a priority, with higher being the higher priority. I'm just going to go back into this filter and show you what this is here. Do we want to replace? Yes or no? If we turn on yes, what am I going to replace it with? For this instance, it's going to be stone. So I'm saying, please mine osmium ore and replace it with stone. Again, it's going to get this from the top, and we can say auto pull to automatically pull out from the chest. Now, in this mod pack that I'm playing, you can see that Mekanism is actually replacing all of my ores. So if I know that there's no machinery underneath me or in the area that I'm mining, let's say it's just out in the middle of nowhere, what I can do is I can just say mod ID filter, Mekanism, and it's actually going to mine up all of the ores in Mekanism, which are tin and copper, etc. Obviously, if you're using a different mod to, consolidate all of your ores, then you can use a mod ID filter for that. Or you can individually put in the exact ores or items that you would like. It really can mine anything, or nearly anything. I can also turn this filter off. Let's say for some reason, I'm like, right now, I don't want to use this mod. I only want to use this. You can turn the filters on and off without having to delete them. Next question is, where is it going to mine? Well, this is the radius around the miner, 10, 15, etc., and the minimum and maximum eye level. So I'm mining from 0 to 60. Do we want to turn on inverse mode? This means it's going to mine everything apart from the items in our filter. I don't want to do that right now. And also, should inverse mode require replacement? Because we can't add in the replacement into the filter, because obviously in inverse mode, it's actually mining everything outside of the filter, we need to select the replacement blocks for the inverse mode specifically, which is here. So it's saying, do I want to replace everything outside of the filter with this, which is here, again, stone? And that is how you configure your digital miner. So let's say that we're not on inverse mode, we're using this radius, and we are looking to mine up everything with the Mekanism filter. I can then press start. Now you can see here that in the inventory, it is mining up some ores here. And you can see, oh, it's taken my teleporter. Oh my God, let's stop that. I think it's just taken an item here from the part of another tutorial I'm going to film. And that is what you've got to be careful of. So it does have this inventory here where it's going to pull your ores out to. But where are they then going? Well, there's actually another orange hole on the back here that you can see. And that is where your items are going to be pulled out of the digital miner. And that is how you use it. That is how you use the digital miner for Mekanism. So now that we actually know how to use the digital miner, how are we going to move items out of it? Well, of course, you can just shove a chest on the back and that'd be the end of it. But let's actually get a bit more advanced. Let's look at using the quantum Entangloporter. This is really interesting. In the same way that the digital miner has the interface, so does the quantum Entangloporter. What we can do is set a new frequency, press the tick, that's the frequency. Let's put this on the tutorial frequency. We can set the upgrades, which is basically an anchor, so it keeps it chunk loaded, or the security, etc. And it does need power. Apart from that, we can go onto the side config, and we can say, what do we want to do about fluids, gases, infuse, heat, energy, slurries, or pigments? We can change all of these in, left, right, bottom, and top, etc. So let's say it's on the tutorial one, and here I'm saying on the left, input from the digital miner, on the top, input from the item pipe, which is actually realistically where it's coming out of. And then we've got energy coming in from the front. Okay, so the items are going out of the digital miner into the quantum entangloporter on the tutorial frequency. Then what happens on the tutorial frequency, as you can see here, frequency tutorial, I'm saying output on the right. So basically, it's going to come out of the digital miner, it's going to go into the quantum entangloporter tutorial frequency, and then this is going to come out on the tutorial frequency. And therefore, it's going to come into here. And here are the teleporter frames that were stolen from me. And that literally is how the quantum entangloporter works. As long as it's on the same frequency, you can pretty much transfer anything, anywhere. Another similar object we have is the teleporter. These are really easy to make, where you put one teleporter block on the bottom and then just surround it like this, like a nether portal with teleporter frames. You right click, give it power. I'm giving power underneath. Give the teleporter power. Again, this is on the tutorial frequency, not the same as the quantum entangloporter. This is specifically for your teleporters. And I can say it's public. And then you can also change the color. So gray, light blue, lime, etc. And that is of that frequency. Simply step through. And I've come out here. And again, if I switch the color, you can see it changes the color of that frequency. You can change the frequencies. What you could do is have one main one at your base, and then you could have like 10 different portals around the world. And every time you want to change it, you basically will just change the one you want to go to. That does mean, however, you're going to need to come back through that same portal to get back. Obviously, if you don't want to come back through a different portal, this one back at base would be on a different frequency. Hopefully it makes sense. So it depends how you want to set it up. But that is a really easy way of using teleporters to get around. They do use a lot of energy, however. If you want to look at really advanced ways of making energy, I'll be covering that later in my end game part of my guides. By this point in Mekanism, we've probably using quite a fair amount of resources. And we've also looked at how we're actually going to mine up resources en masse. So how then are we going to process all these ores that we're digging up with our digital miner? Well, if I just crack through this wall here, ta-da! I've done it all for you. So you may or may not be aware that in Mekanism, we can actually 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and 5 times our ores. Let's first look at how we're going to double our ores. There is a slight diminishing returns, but it's basically double. That's how we kind of talk about it. It's probably more like 1.5 or like 1.7 and then like 2.5, 2.6, something like that. So very simply, if we want to double our ores, we're going to put our osmium ore into this chest here, into an enrichment chamber, which is going to turn it into osmium dust. We then pull that through to an energized smelter, where it's going to turn the osmium dust, as you can see, into a osmium ingot. And we are literally doubling our ores, which is very simple. If we now go through this area, we can get to the area where we are tripling our ores. So what I am doing here is I'm putting these wool on the floor. So you can see basically this is the production line of your ore. So instead of putting the ore in here, we're actually going to put the ore in this chest here for 3 timesing our ore. We can put our osmium in or our tin, etc. And we're going to pump it into a purification chamber with oxygen, purifying the osmium ore into osmium clumps. Pull the osmium clumps from the purification chamber into a crusher, crushing the osmium clumps into dirty osmium dust. The dirty osmium dust then go through the enrichment chamber to get turned into dust and then get turned into ingots in the smelter. So 2 times was just the enrichment chamber and the energized smelter. And then for 3 times, we're actually going to put the ores in here. So it goes from the purification chamber with oxygen into the crusher, into the enrichment chamber, and into the smelter. If you've forgotten how to get oxygen, well, it's quite simple. We're going to pump water from an electric pump, putting it into an electrolytic separator, where it's going to separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Remember, hydrogen coming out on the left, oxygen on the right. the blue path showing oxygen. We can simply pump oxygen into the purification chamber and 3 times our ores. We can then actually go one step further and quadruple our ores, where instead of putting them into the purification chamber, we're actually going to add one step behind that and add them into the chemical injection chamber. To do this, we are going to need hydrogen chloride, though. Now, how do we make hydrogen chloride? Well, we're going to need a thermal evaporation tower. The thermal evaporation tower is a bit more complex, but it's not scary as it looks. Basically, we're going to make these blocks, thermal evaporation blocks, 4 times 4, and you can make them, I believe, up to 17 high. And it's hollow in the inside apart from the bottom. You can also leave the top corners off. So I'm doing it at like a height of 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to put a controller somewhere on it so that you can access the interface. And you also want to put a few valves on, like here, a thermal evaporation valve. Now, this is going to use heat and water to make brine. So if I click inside, you can see water and heat is making brine. What I'm doing to make the heat is using a resistive heater. You can let it do it on its own in a hot biome and it'll be fine. But I like to use the resistive heater. So you power it at the front, you put in how much energy you want to use, let's say 300 a tick, and it's going to heat it up more and more. And out the top, we can use a thermodynamic conductor into a valve to pump in the heat. You can also use a mechanism pump to pump in the water. Simply then, we're going to use another valve to pump out the brine. What that's going to go into is another electrolytic separator. Just like how we did in the ×3 part, except in this part, we're going to be pumping in the brine rather than water, and that's going to make sodium and chlorine. We want to dump the excess sodium, because we literally don't care, and the chlorine we're going to pump out of the right-hand side. We're going to pump that chlorine into a chemical infuser. Now, remember our hydrogen from when we were tripling our ores? Well, don't dump it. Actually pump it out and put this into the left-hand side of your chemical infuser, where the chlorine goes into the right-hand side. So chlorine and the hydrogen goes into the chemical infuser, and out of the front is hydrogen chloride. And that's what goes into the chemical injection chamber to 4 times our ores. Just to go through that again, just to make sure you fully understand what's happening. 4x4 thermal evaporation tank, needing a controller and some valves. Use the resistive heater, pumping in energy, pumping out heat into a valve. Pump out water into another valve. Voila, it turns it into brine. Pump that out of another valve into an electrolytic separator, dumping the sodium, taking the chlorine out of the right-hand side into a chemical infuser, taking hydrogen out of another electrolytic separator into the left-hand side. That makes hydrogen chloride. Pump it out the front into your chemical injection chamber. Ores go into the chemical injection chamber and then get pushed into the purification chamber, the crusher, the enrichment chamber, and then the smelter, and we 4 times our ores. The only other thing is to, of course, pump in oxygen to the purification chamber at this point. And there you go. You 4 times your ores. I do want to mention one other thing. We can actually make this even better. We can add advanced solar generators that I think we went through very early on in this video, or it might have been in the beginner guide part. We can put these on. Oh my God, I'm stuck. We can put these onto the corners here. And this will basically just make it even better. It's going to actually make it just a bit more efficient and make more brine, more efficiently on these corners. And these are just advanced solar generators from the Mekanism generators add-on mod. And that is everything that I want to show you for the advanced part of this Mekanism guide. So we've learned all about factories and digital miner and how to get ores, how we can double, triple, and quadruple our ores. There is also this whole setup, which will actually 5 times your ore, but I'm going to leave that in for my end game guide rather than advanced, as it is a bit more complex, as you can see. If you did enjoy this video, please obviously subscribe and leave a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to request more mods, you can do that in my Discord. There's a channel specifically for requesting tutorials. And you can also consider joining my Patreon, which really, really helps support my channel.